Welcome back to the REI Hot Seat. I've got Jacob Campanaro here with me as always. We're doing this virtually for yet another week. Jake, thanks as always for being here.
Yeah, Andrew, you're down in sunny Florida. I'm still up here,
Still freezing.
still up
Yeah.
here freezing my buns off, same as last episode. But
I'll be freezing soon enough, so don't worry. I'll be back there with you.
uh,
Right now, I got sun on the
uh,
mind, and we're doing different today. I got a deal. Well, not really. Sort of, yes, no. I'm looking at some stuff in Cape Coral, Florida. So I know a lot of people who follow this know that I've invested down there. So we're going to go through a deal in Florida right now. And anyways, so I'm looking at canal front lots. So those who know Cape Coral know that it's like you've got or dredged canals everywhere. So specifically what I've got in mind, and I'm going to show this right now, is canal lots that are close to a place called Matlacha. And it's basically like you could just jump on one of these canals. So say this lot, for instance, you could jump on this canal and you just swing your boat right through here. And then you just head right down here and you're out into the ocean. So there's like Sanibel Island if you zoom out here, but there's a pretty good path where you can just
yeah,
get right out into the Gulf of Mexico.
that's
And
fantastic. And Andrew, I'm curious. So on all the homes there, I'm assuming have docks. Everybody has a boat down there. Do you know timelines on how long it takes to get out to the ocean? I'm just curious. So something that
normally
popped
this
in
is
my
the
head.
problem. Like this is why I normally have sort of avoided the issue is because I didn't want to take like 40 minutes to get out to the ocean. Like what's the point in being on salt water if you got to putter
Yeah.
around for 40 minutes? Although I actually kind of find that fun. Like I like taxiing through the canals, but not everybody does. So as an investor, I'd be looking for what's close. If the one I was just showing you here, like this would probably be like 5 minutes. Like you'd probably be out in five because there's a legend here. That's 500 feet, right? So you're probably what,
Yeah.
like maybe it's more like 10 to 15 by the time you're out. Like if you're not trying to be aggressive, but that's
Yeah.
very reasonable for a trip out to the ocean for the day. I think I'd be more than okay with that. Being a boater myself, not that I own one, but I do love boating. Anyway, so there's a few things that you got to look for when you're looking at these lots. For one, obviously price tag, 369 is not cheap. And I've sort of noticed I had some of these comps sent to me is that the closer you are to this access at Matlacha, the more you're paying. Like, yes, these are saltwater access here, but now you're going to be more like a half an hour out,
Right,
maybe a
right,
bit
right.
longer, right? So just keeping that in mind, like I'm going to just go ahead and look at this one and say I could get it for a deal. So a couple of things I want to look out for. If there's nests, so in Cape Coral, if there's like a nest on one of these lots, you have to either pay to move it, like an eagle's nest, turtle's nest, any of that stuff. You got to pay to move it. So you really got to be careful. You also have to look for if there's any sort of vegetation growth along the canal, because if there's like, say, large plants or something like that, some of them are protected and you just can't, like it would cost you tens and tens of thousands to build. I mean, right off the bat, you're
And
kind of
Andrew,
looking
we're
for these things.
just curious because that's a really good little tidbit of information that I would have never thought of. I'm
Mhm.
sure someone who hasn't looked at investing in Florida would have never thought of looking for
Yeah.
turtles' nests.
Yeah.
Where did you find that information out? Where can people go to get more little
Yeah.
information like that? Because I'm sure
There's
there's a whole bunch of those little
There's
things,
a
right?
municipal map. I don't have the link handy here, but there's a municipal map where you can actually find what the city has on record. Now, that doesn't mean that it's accurate information, but you can click the lot. And if they've identified it, you'll see turtle's nest or owl's nest or whatever it is. And then there are professionals that can move them, but there's always a cost, right? Like a turtle, I think is going to be like $3,000 to get rid of. Not that that's the end of the world, but the other thing here, like biggest thing, if you're thinking waterfront lot is your seawall. So here I can see like there's a pretty consistent seawall from the neighbors all the way over. Like it looks like, and I'm not sure that my next point of due diligence would be to look at this and see if that seawall is sufficient. If it is, that saves huge time because the seawall right now can take over a year to get. And then it could be $30,000, $40,000 as well. So got to be watching out. The other thing to pay attention to down here is city sewer and water service. That's a big thing. Everybody gets slapped with a tax assessment when their sewer and water mains come in. So a big thing you'll see on listings down here is all tax assessments paid. Like that's a big thing that people are looking out for. And a lot of people, that's not the case. So then say they throw $30,000 onto your taxes. Now that's being amortized over X number of years and it's making your taxes a lot more. So these are all things that are part of my
And
due
can you pay
diligence.
that lump sum?
Yeah, you can pay them off lump sum. So you can
Okay.
negotiate it into your deal, right? So I'm looking at this and thinking, well, how can I get creative to make this deal work? Because like a quick look on Zillow, like you'll see some of these like waterfront. I mean, people get their boats. It's
Yeah.
obviously like it's a boat culture down there. And like doesn't that looks like amazing. So like I
Yeah.
want that.
That's
Uh,
awesome. And it's almost like looking at this stuff, Andrew, and this is just personal preference, but being on the beach is one thing and it's beautiful.
yeah.
But the challenge with being on the beach is you usually can't park your boat out front of your house,
Yeah.
right? So you have to have your boat at a marina.
Right.
With
Whereas here you could
this,
be, oh yeah, like the value
right?
here, like I think
Yeah.
longevity, like at what point in the future, like you could go and invest in Sudbury and say, I'm worried one day they might close the nickel mine, but never are people not going to like sun and waterfront. Like, I mean, unless something crazy happens,
Like a hurricane.
Yeah, I mean, the hurricane did have an effect, but with new construction, you
And
build it hurricane, more or less
yeah,
hurricane proof. It's not perfect,
yeah,
but my stuff survived the hurricane because my stuff was built
yeah.
up out. Like people down here get flood insurance. I'm not
Yeah, and I was
specifically.
talking with a guy the other day, and he was in Florida during the hurricane. He actually
Yeah,
drove from Ontario down to Florida,
yeah,
not knowing how bad it was going to be, but was there for it. And he was saying because his
yeah,
was a new construction house, he just got water in his garage, whereas his neighbors,
yeah.
everybody around him was completely
Yeah.
filled in with
We
water.
had none. The worst I had, because we didn't even have doors on. I didn't have garage doors on. So the wind blew in and blew off some of my drywall panels. And the one that they had just hung the drywall, we also got one of the walls wasn't fastened properly. So it pushed in a bit.
Yeah,
So we just had to move
that's
it
all right.
back, just a drywall wall. So it was like
Yeah,
2,500 in
yeah.
damage. Had a couple of shingles that had turned up, not off, but they turned up. Yeah, estimates are about 2,500 US for all the damage. But I'm
Well,
at the point where
that's a blessing. Yeah,
yeah, like
yeah,
I'm so fortunate. Like there are people who lost their houses everywhere with flood. The flood
yeah,
was the big thing, and the new code is you build out of the floodplain. So as long as like I
yeah,
wouldn't consider
yeah.
a lot if the municipality wouldn't allow me to elevate it enough to get it out of the floodplain. I wouldn't consider it.
Yeah.
But as far as I've heard,
And
that's
then
not actually a thing.
got it. And one more question for you, Andrew. Then I want
Yeah,
to dive into kind of some comparables and costs on building and everything, because
yeah,
this
yeah,
looks, the profit margins look pretty decent here. I just recognize that when we're looking through this, it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like in Florida, it's almost each individual builds their own house rather than subdivisions being built. Because it seems to be there's a
yeah,
lot of lots in between the
yeah,
homes here. Whereas in Ontario, we look and it's kind of like Newco is always,
yeah,
you get a full subdivision.
yeah.
How's that like down
So I did a video on my Instagram this week. If somebody wants to go pop back and check that out, because I explained what's the deal with Cape Coral. Like, why is Cape Coral
there?
so weird? Cape Coral was developed in like the 50s. And before that, there was nothing there. It was just like this giant uninhabited cape. And they dredged all the canals to build up the land. So it was like a combo. They were trying to make it so that everybody had waterfront.
Yeah.
So the developer that came in there, like they made geographically a massive city when there was like nobody there, zero. So they developed the whole thing, turned it all in, dredged all the canals, and prepared all these lots. And the uptake on it just wasn't there because there weren't sewers. They didn't have the servicing. So it was like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of like analogies. I feel like the swampland in Florida thing might be related to this, but they've turned it into something pretty cool. And it's more recent years where I think people are really seeing the value of Cape Coral. So the story is there's still like hundreds of thousands of undeveloped lots that are just owned by private owners. So the big thing in Cape is that people will just hire GCs to build. So you'll buy a lot and you'll hire a GC to build it. And that's what I've done. And that's very common. And I like that because there's actually a lot of builders out there that they just do this for hire. It's big business down in Cape. So yeah, let's just jump into a couple of comparables. Like I've had loose conversations with the realtor I've been working with down here, and we've talked, and it could be 1.5 or could be less. But let's just say we're into that ballpark, and I've got to dig in. Like literally, I started looking at this before we got on today. We were going to do a different deal, and I'm like, no, let's talk about Florida because I got that on my mind.
Well, these coming in at 1,875,
Yeah,
based on a 350 lot purchase.
yeah.
The margins, just from my understanding of construction costs down there, seem pretty good, Andrew. Like,
Yeah, so
is
I'm going
this
to
a
go
recent
through.
sale?
Yes,
Yeah,
this is
okay.
in the last
Yeah.
90 days, but I don't expect to get this. Like I'd be building a bit smaller than that. Like the model, I'm just building this model now elsewhere in town. I'd probably build it again. It's about 2,200, just shy of 2,200 square feet. This was a 2,339, but I would build 4-bed, 3-bath. So comparable, a little smaller, probably fetch a little bit less, and there's other variables there too. So let's just say like maybe I'm in the 1.5 range even, because I'm a little smaller.
Yeah.
Now let's go through and look at some pictures of what I've just built. And this is pre-landscaping. So this is the one I'm working on right now. So that's the front view of it. Triple car garage. This is actually a shower in the front. Show you that in a second. So we've got our pool going in. This was just
Those
last
going
week.
in.
Yeah. Overflow
Are
hot
you doing
tub.
concrete or liner on the pool?
Oh, it's like a parging kind of look.
It's going to be concrete. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So this is like a shower. So I've already sort of like done this nicer. This is a walk around shower and bathroom. Like it's kind of midway right
That
now.
looks good.
But I'm thinking doing the same thing. Like, yes, I'll spend a bit more. Like this one, I'll have spent somewhere in the 410, 420 range on construction. To do the one down on the canal, obviously I'm going to spend more, going to do more landscaping, do some upgrades. So I'll probably be into something more like a 500,000 or maybe even a touch more. So I'll just kind of work through some rough numbers right now. So if I bought for 350, say I could get it for that, all assessments paid. Maybe I'm stretching. I'll have to see. Say I could build it for 500. Say somehow I could make the interest work out to be about 10% for a 12-month period. I might have undershot that a bit, but let's just throw that in there.
Andrew, the 500, I'm going to go back a little bit because this is the part that I'm really excited to see, kind of just a rough breakdown of the numbers here. And I know you have a mastermind happening, so I don't want you to spill all the secrets right now. So the 350 is your lot purchase, and that's assuming it was the lot we looked at earlier in the video here.
Yeah.
500, does that include like fees, moving the turtle's nest?
Yeah,
Like what's
reasonably
included in
it
that?
should. Like, I'm assuming no turtle's nest here, but if
Okay.
like your impact fees are like nothing down here, like development charges, impact fees. Like on the one I just showed you, we were under 12 grand for everything. Like that was my survey, my actual prints, my blueprints themselves, creation,
Yeah.
permit fees, development impact charges, under 12 grand. Like imagine that in Toronto, didn't it just go up to like 150 a unit or something in Toronto? Like it's something
It's
ridiculous.
getting crazy.
And
Yeah.
then you still
Yeah.
have all your architect's fees and everything on top of that. Like down here, we use private inspectors. Like you don't want to rely on Cape Coral's municipal inspectors. You hire your own who certify the work was done and send it to the city.
Perfect.
So it's an extra cost, but
And
that's all
then
built into that.
Okay, and then piggybacking on that quickly, how does it work with zoning? Is there zoning? Is there site plan control, or is it more of the HOA that controls things in Cape Coral? I've heard different things from different investors all over the States. So I was
Yeah.
just curious here, like, can
I
we
mean,
do two-story? Does it have to be bungalow?
the two-story is a good question. I've heard people talk about them, but you almost never see it. I think
Yeah.
that's mainly because concrete's not that expensive down here and you have big lots. So you don't really need to go two-story, but you could look at it. I don't know if the zoning allows for it or not. My assumption is that it does, but I haven't really dug into that. You just don't often see it in Cape unless you get closer to the water. Once you get down there, you do start to see like the bigger, nicer houses. I don't think I'd need to go two stories, but it's certainly something I could explore. As far as
I've just never seen it on those canal lots. So I was
No.
curious if it was a zoning restriction or site plan control.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Okay.
It'd be something to look into. I definitely would stay within what the zoning would restrict, just for simplicity. Timing is everything.
No, we don't need to start going for minor variances to do an investment project.
So these lots, they require an 80-foot frontage. Like if you don't have 80-foot frontage, then you would be a minor variance, assuming they have that similar process, which I believe they do. So yeah, you're going to want to make sure you got your 80-foot by 120 as a standard lot. So you've got to get a survey within a year. There are a certain number of things that you've got to do to make it work, but it's pretty straightforward outside of that. You can't build duplexes on any of these or anything like that. Like you have to find special lots for that kind of thing.
Got it. And then is there an HOA? Is there a homeowners association in Cape Coral? No.
One of the best things about Cape Coral is yes, you can join an HOA, but majority of it is not HOA. So you can do your Airbnbs and things like that. Of course, they do have some restrictions on that, but it's nothing like home.
Well, I just read an article the other day where a homeowners association restricted pickup trucks in a neighborhood because they felt it brought down the value of the neighborhood if you owned a pickup truck. And so I was looking at that, getting a bit offended, going, come on, man. I'm not living there. And they were going after one of the residents because he bought a pickup truck. It was wild. So
that's absolutely insane. See, that's why I'm very much not a fan of condos, HOAs. Like to me, you've already got the government telling you what you can do with your property. Last thing I want is, a condo association doing the same thing.
Just curious. Now, okay, so let's dive into the numbers here quickly.
Yeah, because we could go on forever on this, but I'm just going to show what I mean. I have a total cost and a sale price. So let's just see your minus. I'll show it right now. Yeah, so this is just rough. And I don't know if this is exactly how it would work out. I've been conservative on some things and probably could have been more conservative on others. But say I got it for 350, built it for 500, interest for 85. So my total all in to acquire and improve would be 935. And then I've got a sale price of, say, on the low end based on what we just saw, but I could be wrong. Like this is his initial research, 1.350. Realtor fees, being conservative, estimating 6%. That's pretty common down here. Although, people will tell you that's common at home too. People will tell you that's common at home too. So I'm sure you can find an angle, but
yeah, new construction is definitely up there in that range, right?
Yeah, it gets up there. It gets up there. Yeah. So, if that's 330, then the real question is if those numbers are accurate, and if that is a big if, is that worth the exposure? Right? That's the key question to ask. And this is part of my due diligence is figuring that out. Like how comfortable do I feel with those numbers? How have they fluctuated in past declines if the market does continue? Although the higher end has done pretty well in Cape Coral, I'm told by the realtor I've been working with. So
yeah, I think you got to look at your exposure. You got to look a few years out and say, what do you feel? And as I always do with all my clients, worst case scenario. What's your A, B, and C?
What are you going to do?
What happens if you can't make 350? What happens if it's 100 or if it's 50?
Well, I think no matter what you sell, no matter what you're selling, like even if it's a loss you're selling, because on an Airbnb, you can look at, I don't think you're going to make your money back on an Airbnb with that, because who has a boat that's going, but I could be wrong about that, because you could be close to a boat rental. Like somebody could technically rent a boat and bring it up.
Here's the other thing. I spoke about this with some Airbnb owners, and they actually have a boat for their Airbnb. It's separate insurance. You have to pay a separate policy for it. Yeah. And if you want to use it, you can pay to use it. But there's literally a boat you can rent on the Airbnb.
And this is where you're getting creative.
Fishermen.
Yeah, this is where you're getting creative. Like there's always an angle. Like there are people when something bad happens, they're like, oh, woe is me. Like, oh, I always have such bad luck. And there are other people that are like, okay, so what are we going to do to make this work? And that I like that where you went with that. So it doesn't mean you go with the deal though. Like you pick path of least resistance. Like to this point, I've loved dry lots because the dry lots, I've gotten them for average like 30, 35,000, 45 on the high end. That's very different, but I'm selling in a much lower, much more affordable price point. I still like that. I'll probably still rock and roll with that type, but to do one occasionally that could maybe fetch a bit more, I'm into that too. So something I'm considering.
Andrew, so for someone coming into this for the first time, can we flip back to your numbers quickly? Sure. I just want you to bake in to the best of your knowledge. And we're, you know, obviously if anybody wants to know more, go to the mastermind, but first time buyer, I'm coming down there. Let's say I have cash or I'm borrowing some of my capital. Let's keep the $85,000 interest charge. But what about setup fee for your LLC, your lawyers, your all of that? How does rough ballpark? How does that
like if it's just you, like if you're not like actually partnered in with somebody, you don't need partnership agreements done up. Like I took a partnership agreement from somebody else because it's just me partnering with myself. So I didn't really care if it was like bulletproof. It didn't need to be. But I was like $1,500 to set up my corporation, my structure, plus another $1,000 a year to maintain it. And of course, you're gonna have to pay your accountant. You need a cross-border accountant. These are a lot of things that are way too much for this video to go through. But
for sure. And that's why I was just saying, like,
ballpark, you need a couple $1,000s for your structure. Probably budget $3,000 to be able to, talk to a lawyer, get them to do up their partnership agreement. Like I literally incorporated them myself on sunbiz.org. Like I knew my structure. My accountant told me what to do. I just did it myself online. So it's pretty easy to
so let's assume another 5 to 10K for miscellaneous and registration.
Like if you're just going down, and I don't think this is the first deal you take on. You don't take this deal on by yourself your first time.
Right.
Like that's more of a once you're comfortable in the market, then maybe you take a swing at something a little bit bigger.
So that's amazing. Okay. So Andrew, like just to wrap things up, let's turn the tables here a little bit because usually you ask me how people get in touch and what do we want to do and everything like that. So this time around, I'm going to say, Andrew, I know you have some event happening. It's an investing in Florida mastermind talk. So how do people get a hold of you if they want to go into a deep dive into this and actually start the process? We can use the link below, but
sure,
give me 5 minutes on
link. I'll put a link there. So investingintheus.com. That's our mastermind. It's happening on March 4th. If you're interested in getting into the US, obviously there's more than we're going to cover in a video here. If you want to do a deep dive, we've got people like I'll be talking about this stuff. I'll be available throughout the day. And then we have our private Facebook membership group afterwards where we'll be interacting and kind of sharing on this stuff. But like if you want to know who I've been working with, how I did things. Nick, my business partner on the event, he's developing self-storage in Houston, Texas. He's Canadian as well. We've got multiple different Canadians who are absolutely crushing it in the US that are going to be there. So if you want to know like the nuts and bolts and not go through the headaches and not potentially make some very costly mistakes that you didn't need to make, come join us. We'd love to see you there. So I'll put the link, check out the info. If you have questions for me, or if you just want to, ask me a question about the event, at the Andrew Hines on Instagram is the easiest place, or right here in the questions, comments on the video. I can answer them here. So
and then on top of that, as always, we're going to have the link to the REI Hot Seat mailing list. Anybody's welcome to join, sign up. I'll reach out to you. We'll have an initial intake call. We'll do a real estate action plan is what I call it. So you'll come in, we'll have a conversation, and then from there we can work together, or I can send you opportunities as we move forward off market. So this week's going to have 2 links, but either way, you're going to get in touch with somebody here, and we can go from there, man.
And just to clarify, so Jake's list, if you're wanting to buy in Ontario and we like the deals we normally cover, because normally we're just covering Ontario deals. This is just a unique episode talking about Florida. Not that we won't, branch out again in the future, but would love to hear from you.
You can definitely tell I don't sell real estate in Florida. Look how pasty I am, Andrew. So
we gotta get you down there to get that tan, man.
I know. I need to get down there. But I love this topic. I think we should do more of this, Andrew. Like it's definitely this has helped me with my seasonal affect disorder, just looking at those photos alone. So, and I hope other people feel the same way and diversifying their portfolio, right? Getting into different opportunities, different revenue streams. It's very important to do so.
A little diversity, right? Like I'm still invested in Ontario, although I'm not actively looking for stuff right now. I think having a nice hedge, being diversified is key. Some people who diversify provinces, I felt it important to diversify countries. I wanted to have some stuff outside of Canada, so I feel good about that. But so thanks to everyone who made it this far. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't already done that stuff, and share a comment, ask us a question. What do you want to know about? Is this something that you would be interested in investing in? Tell us what's your ideal type of investment in this climate. We'd love to hear from you. So Jake, thanks as always. We'll see everyone next week.